When Damien was just a boy, he watched his father, James, dragged away in chains. His father, a hard-working and honest man, was sentenced to death for a murder he didn't commit. The trial was a sham. The evidence had been tampered with, the witnesses bribed, and the real culprit, a wealthy businessman, walked free. Damien's world shattered the day his father was executed. He was left alone, angry, and full of hatred for the system that destroyed his family. As Damien grew, so did his rage. The system that was supposed to protect justice had betrayed him, and his father's death haunted his every waking moment. The pain festered inside him, twisting his once kind heart into something cold and vengeful. Years later, Damien returned to the town that had stolen everything from him. He was no longer the helpless boy who watched his father die. Now he was a man with a plan to punish the world that had wronged him. If the system wouldn't deliver justice, then he would. Damien became meticulous in his vengeance. His first target was the judge who had presided over his father's trial. Late one night, the judge received an anonymous letter inviting him to meet for dinner at an old, forgotten diner on the edge of town. The judge, tired and unwary, went, thinking it was business as usual. But when he arrived, he found the place deserted, except for Damien, waiting in the shadows. As the judge sat down, he barely had time to react before Damien struck, choking him with a cold, unrelenting grip. The last thing the judge saw was Damien's face, twisted in fury. "This is for my father," Damien whispered, watching the life drain from the man's eyes. But that was only the beginning. Damien didn't just kill his victims, he made sure their families felt the same pain he had endured. He left behind cryptic messages and photos at the crime scenes, pieces of his father's life, a watch, a picture, a handwritten note. Reminders of the innocent man who had been wrongfully sentenced to death. Each new murder brought new anguish to the families of his victims, mirroring the suffering he and his mother had endured for years. The media dubbed him the Phantom of Retribution, but no one could track him down. He seemed to appear out of nowhere, taking lives in the dead of night, then disappearing just as quickly. His victims were all connected to the corrupt system that had destroyed his father, and Damien's retribution seemed unstoppable. As his body count rose, Damien grew more ruthless. Lawyers, police officers, even politicians, all those who had played a part in his father's fate, met horrific ends. Their families, left in the wake of his destruction, were shattered, just like Damien's had been. One night, he targeted the man who had set the wheels in motion all those years ago, the wealthy businessman who had framed his father. Damien broke into the man's mansion and confronted him in his study. The businessman, now an old, frail man, tried to defend himself, babbling excuses, but Damien's mind was already made up. But as Damien raised the knife, he saw something he hadn't expected. Fear. Real fear. The same kind he had felt as a boy, watching his father taken from him. For the first time, Damien hesitated. The old man wasn't the powerful figure he had imagined all these years. He was just a broken, terrified soul, just like Damien had once been. Damien lowered the knife and left without saying a word, but something inside him had changed. As he walked away, he realized that no amount of death or destruction could bring his father back, or erase the pain he had carried for so long. But it was too late. The ghost of his father lingered behind him, his vengeance unfulfilled, and the darkness that had consumed Damien for so many years refused to let go.